What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the most must-see podcast in all of the interwebs. I am your host, Ambrose, joined by...
your host, Fuzzy.
And...
PasMorning.
Good
job!
My
God, he's alive!
And he remembered his name, alright.
Yeah, that's all it took for you guys.
Yeah.
One of them and I'm dead.
Hey, you missed two of them, technically.
Yeah,
Well, the first one you were dead, the second one you were just sick. But whatever. Anyways, we got a wonderful show planned for you guys today, so if you don't mind, sit back, relax, and turn off your cell phones. Because, well, we require your undivided attention.
What if you're watching on your cell phone?
Oh.
Then don't turn it off. Because...
this is important business.
Exactly. Anyways, with that being said, we're going to go on to other bigger and better things now.
To kick things off, Ambrose, what was your favorite boss fight?
Boss fights. So many good ones to choose from. But, honestly, one boss fight I've always loved, that always stood out to me, was from one of the Zelda games, of course, because Zelda's got amazing boss fights throughout the entire series.
A lot of unique ones, too.
Yeah, a lot of unique ones. And this one, arguably one of the more unique ones, I'd say. Comes from Skyward Sword, which I know, PasMorning, you're a fan of Zelda, and we were just talking earlier that you haven't played Skyward Sword yet. Right. But there's this dungeon in Skyward Sword called the Ancient Cistern. It's like the best dungeon in the game, hands down. Which is ironic because it's kind of a water-based temple, which those are usually pretty bad. But it's like a whole Hindu style thing, so it's got like a statue of like what looks like a Buddha and stuff like that in the middle. And the boss fight, though, probably the highlight of the whole game, is a boss fight called Kalaktos. And it's this giant, like, automaton Hindu deity thing that's got, like, 6 arms and a bunch of giant swords.
Okay.
And the whole premise of the fight is it has a core in its chest that you have to strike to kill it. And the only way to do so is to use the whip that you get from the dungeon and take his arms off and take the sword from it and start smacking the crap out of it with its own sword.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's one of the best, and I can't even, like, describe it. I can't even give it justice by describing it, because it's that unique.
I do like those kind of fights where the best way to take out the enemy is with their own weapon, and it is super satisfying to beat the crap out of, the bad boss with their own stuff. So I can definitely see that. Yeah,
it's easily the best boss fight in that entire game. Arguably, best boss fight in Zelda, in my opinion. I mean, with a few exceptions, you got your Ganondorfs and all that kind of stuff too. But it's easily one of the best boss fights in my opinion. What about you, PasMorning? What boss fights do you really like?
Let's see. One of my favorite boss fights. I don't know if Fuzzy doesn't really do Final Fantasy games, but I think you do.
Yeah. I love Final Fantasy. Yeah.
Final Fantasy X, which is the oldest Final Fantasy game I remember. I had played the other ones beforehand, but like the first one I remember was Final Fantasy. Too, actually. Yeah, Final Fantasy X, and for the PS2. Fantastic visuals. Loved the cutscenes. Everything of it was really good. One of my favorite fights was the first Sin fight on the boat. Where you got that big old shark fin comes out, and you have to take out the giant fin. And it wasn't just that I liked. It was also afterwards you get to see the cataclysm that happens to the nearby area. Big old water tornado thing going on. And so that fight was not necessarily the toughest fight or even the most original fight, but it was one that kind of told you, like, hey, this is some of what's happening next.
Right, and I mean that boss fight too. That the Fin of Sin is the Fin of Sin. I like that. We'll make a band name out of that. Anyways, the Fin of Sin though, it's a giant fin. It's not like a small little creature. So when fighting it, you're like, oh, this is pretty big, and then you see the rest of Sin later, and you're like, oh,
yeah,
shit,
he's huge. Yeah, the very first time you get to see this person, it is literally just like one small part, and it was not small. Yeah. And it was a fight. So yeah, that was a very memorable one for me.
Yeah, I personally think Final Fantasy X had some of the better bosses. Mostly because it was the first one that was
On
not
the
on the,
PS2.
it was not on PS1, so it had better graphics and stuff like that. So a lot of the boss fights ended up being just better by comparison.
Another one that I really enjoyed too was I know I'm not supposed to say two of them, but Seymour. Yeah, Seymour.
Which one though? I mean, there's so many Seymour fights.
Well, the first Seymour fight, or whatever, which one it was, where it becomes officially established that this dude is awful.
Oh yeah.
And you get to see, his summon, which you can't remember what the
Anima.
Yep.
Coolest badass fight summon in the whole game.
That guy was so hard to take out the first time around. He was so hard. I found myself just throwing my own summon characters at it because I knew here comes the attack that's going to murder me. So I was sacrificing summon characters left, right, and sideways to get out of it.
Oh yeah.
And that one was tough.
All right, Fuzzy. What about you? What's your favorite boss fight?
I spent all week trying to recall some of my favorite boss fights, and recently most games I've been playing have been strategy and simulation. Even role-playing games such as The Elder Scrolls Online, I don't really recall any boss fights that really struck out to me. Now, there is this one boss fight on Perfect Dark, which is challenging. It's not really a boss fight, but it kinda is in a way.
You talking the original?
Yes. But it's just a huge pain in the ass, but once you defeat him, it's so worth it. Dr. Kerr, which is a robot down in the Datadyne Center, that's a scientist. Now, when you rescue him, you bring him up from the basement all the way up to the top. And there is this giant fucking gunship that follows you around. Sometimes it takes on pretty easy and you might miss it, but when it sees you, it fucking punishes you. It just brings your health down so low, and it doesn't help because Dr. Kerr is a fucking retard. He's like, "Oh my god, Joanna, what are you looking at? Let me get in the way of the gunfire." So you just have to leave him behind.
Sounds like your stereotypical escort mission.
Yeah.
Like Resident Evil 4 as a whole.
Resident Evil.
One where you President's Daughter and stuff like that.
Never played that one.
But when you get to the top level, there is a rocket launcher that you can pick up, and when you destroy them, it's like, it's so amazing. You get to blow them sky fucking high, and it's just so worth it.
Just like the end to like almost every Resident Evil game.
Yeah.
No promises though. Next month I might be picking up a capture card, and I might even stream some of these missions on the hardest difficulty. Let me know down in the comments if you want to see that.
Good luck with that.
I've done it.
Alright.
Oh yeah, he's beaten that game several times. I lost his copy though. He played that game so much that if you looked in the time played on his file, it was more than a year. Yeah. And then I lent it to my cousin, and then they let someone in their house and they stole it.
That sucks.
Yeah. Next question.
Alright. PasMorning. If you could only play one video game for the rest of your life, what would it be? And why? And how?
I would rather die.
You'd rather die?
Well, my problem with that is that if you pick one game, then you kind of, in this instance, if you pick one game, you're forsaking all other games.
Yeah.
That is a question that
that's like heresy right there, man.
Right, that's a question I've tried asking myself before, and to this day I've never actually been able to come up with an answer on it. Because you pick one, you can't pick the other ones, and that is hard. I guess I could get as far as a genre. If there was only one genre that I could play, one of the games, it would probably be one of the early Final Fantasy games. At least then, it'd be long enough for me to, actually enjoy it, I guess. But, yeah, sorry, that's not really a question I can get.
I can get behind that, especially because when you think about Final Fantasy games, a lot of times they're so long, by the time you finish it, you forgot what happened at the beginning. You can replay it from the beginning. Right. You could, say, I forgot what happened. I could just go ahead and replay it now, and I'd still have new information. Yeah, I kind of agree with what you're saying now. That thought never even occurred to me, the whole idea of, forsaking other video games, but now that you mention that, I almost feel sad having to answer this question. But, no, the one game, I think if I had to pick one game to play for the rest of my life, as much as I love the Kingdom Hearts games, they're my favorite series, but I couldn't pick just one of those. So I would have to probably say The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, which is...
That's not a bad one to have as, like, the only game that you can play.
One of my favorite games of all time. My favorite Zelda game. I mean, it depends. I mean, one of them things depend on the day, what your favorite Zelda game is, kind of. But probably the most consistent favorite game of mine is Zelda. And I've played through it probably 12 times over my lifetime already on both N64, GameCube, the 3DS, and all this stuff. I've played through it so many times, and I never get sick of playing that game.
Yeah, it's definitely a game that has made it through the test of time. Like, the Nintendo 64 gets a lot of crap, you know, and as far as what I saw, the Nintendo 64 actually put out the fewest amount of games in Nintendo history. So, like, all the other systems have put out more games than the Nintendo 64.
With the exception probably of the Wii U.
Probably. I wouldn't really know that one. But
that's probably why.
Yeah. Right, yeah, no, that wouldn't went pretty unnoticed.
Fuzzy! What about you? If you had to choose only one video game the rest of your life.
You know, as for me, this was another difficult question, and I'm going to cheat a little bit because this game isn't technically out yet. But I am excited about it, and now I'll be investing a lot of game time in Steam playing this next month when it does come out.
I feel like this is some kind of big payoff that we're waiting for here.
I bet it's going to be awful, just to spite you in picking a game that you could only play for the rest of your life and you've never played it.
This game is called Anano 1800, which is developed by Ubisoft. Now, I covered how I didn't care for Sid Meier's Civilization last week and briefly mentioned the Anano series. If you haven't played Anano before, you basically build up your empire, make your citizens happy, push for the advantage over enemies, make allies, conquer other regions, and destroy them. Depending on how you play, this is how everybody will remember you as.
Well, so you've never actually played this game. This game's not out yet.
Well, I've played Anano 1400. I've also played 2100 and 2800.
Oh, okay, so it's not a one-off series.
No.
Oh, okay.
You know,
so you played the older ones.
So it's basically war simulator,
kind of,
effectively.
Almost sounds like Age of Mythology or something.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of what I was getting the impression of too.
Yeah. You play Age of Mythology?
I haven't actually, even though I love mythology. I've wanted to play it, but
it's like Age of Civilization or like the other Age games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know the gist about it.
Oh, okay, fun game.
Yeah. All right. Well, do the clap. All right. So normally when we do our game discussions on the channel here, we talk about newer games that have recently come out, but we're gonna take things a little old school today. As mentioned, we're going to go old school with this. We're going to talk about Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. Fuzzy, what are your thoughts on this game?
Now, I was only able to squeeze about 2 hours of gameplay in the other day, so I'm not completely left in the dark because Ambrose and PasMorning are giant Zelda nerds.
Is that a fat joke?
Right?
It's kind of... Now, when we first put it to Goom on this giant TV here in the studio, I was kind of hit with the graphics. Man, those graphics are instant nostalgia. And a reminder from where we came from to where we are now.
You hated them.
Also, I am convinced that the Mandela effect is real, because I don't remember how awkward that controller was to hold.
Right.
Overall, I must say the music is pretty catchy. Won't replace Perfect Dark, which is the best soundtrack, by the way. I'll link it down in the description below. And man, I had a blast putting my voice acting to use and giving other characters unique voices.
We did. It was awful.
Man, I miss those days. My only complaint with the game is that you only have 3 days before the game reverts, and that it does punish you. Because you must choose who you save and who you can't save, which really put a heavy heart down in me because it was really depressing. Overall, though, I do plan on going over to PasMorning's house later and continue playing on my daddy saved file. From here...
That was the name he picked, Daddy.
From here, I'm going to PasMorning and Ambrose take over since I'm not qualified to talk much about the rest of the game.
Yeah, shut your mouth over there, you noob.
Yeah.
Get good, scrub.
Nerd!
Talking heresy over there.
Alright, PasMorning. Would you care to enlighten our very ignorant friend over here?
I suppose, I'm never prepared for these kind of things. Yeah, so,
you're talking about, you got a notepad right in front of you, man.
I know, I scribbled.
Had doodles.
Yep, I did. So, yeah, Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask was not necessarily a sequel to Ocarina of Time, but did utilize the same engine and slightly enhanced graphics in order to put out a game as fast as they possibly could. The original concept was that they were going to put essentially an expansion for the 64DD, that's disk drive, which only got released in Japan. There was never an English one put out, although there are rumors that someone actually does own an English version of one, but who knows if that's real, I don't know. But, yeah, there was two projects, Zelda Gaiden and Ura Zelda, which were essentially either supposed to be their own game or expansions. And a challenge was set out to have the game put out as fast as possible. And I believe Ambrose said it was done within a year, right?
Yep.
It was done within a year, and utilized everything from the Ocarina of Time, and was put out as Majora's Mask. And all other Zelda-related anything that was going to be on the DD never happened, as far as I know. It was a commercial flop, so we didn't get the other stuff. But we did get this one.
See, that's what happens when you release stuff only in Japan. I mean,
that's a problem. But
yeah, a trip to Japan.
I'm down.
Which, I mean, who's to say it would have ever been successful if they released it outside Japan anyways? But.
That's true. Well, yeah, it didn't last very long at all. And it was a commercial flop. But, so yeah, Legend of Zelda, and something that you said, Fuzzy, that I believe that was supposed to be the dark overtones of the game, is that no matter what you do, no matter how much you try, no matter anything, you can't save everyone. You just simply can't. There is not enough time. And anytime you do save someone, you often have to go back in time and start before you even save them. Mm-hmm. So any accomplishment that you do get is usually completely rewritten.
Man, that's really dark for a video game.
It is, but that's one of the cool things about it, too, is that it gets you thinking. Every moment that you put into that game, you feel more accomplished, but it's always bittersweet because that accomplishment is very easily taken away. But in a lighter note, this is the only game that has actually utilized, this Legend of Zelda game is the only one that ever utilized the mask system in such a way. Ocarina of Time, of course, had the masks, where you could actually get the Zora mask or the Goron mask and stuff, going through the Happy Salesman.
You were saying that the mask resulted in people dying. That's pretty dark as well, that you're putting somebody's dead head on your...
The first realization that you get into it is in the beginning when you get turned into a Deku scrub, and then on your journey to get out of the starter area and confront Majora or Skull Kid, you actually pass something that looks like essentially a dead Deku scrub. And it becomes more evident later in that every time you get one of those transformation masks, someone essentially lost their life and imparted their spirit in you. And in one instance, you actually get to watch someone's life fade out. Well, you get it. And so, yeah, it kind of...
Link is the beast. So they're just watching people die so you can take their mask. Come on, I'm on a time crunch here. I need that mask. Come on, let's go.
Like you pull someone out of the river, and they die, and so you impart their spirit onto yours to fulfill their dying wish and to inevitably fight on. So it's a lot of bittersweet moments in the game, but I think that's the aspect that I like the most about it.
You just gotta go up to them and be like, "Give me your mask, motherfucker."
All right then.
My entire day yesterday, seriously.
Well, on that note,
yep. So what did you have to say on The Legend of Zelda?
It's interesting because after hearing what you guys said about it, I've kind of realized that I'm more of the lore expert on these types of games, as I enjoy. I'm a person who I enjoy researching things when I get bored.
I am a very big fan of that myself.
Movies, video games, whatever. I like looking up trivia about it, and so I know quite a bit of lore about Majora's Mask. I want to correct one thing.
I didn't know we were allowed to get into lore.
You're allowed to do whatever you want.
Oh, well, then I should have wrote more notes.
Anyways,
okay, go on.
Anyways, one thing I want to correct you on, though, PasMorning, you said it's not necessarily a sequel to Ocarina of Time. It is. It definitely is a sequel.
Well, yeah. That's what I didn't get into that, but it is and it isn't, in the sense that it very clearly takes place after Ocarina of Time in some regards, but also can be seen as its own separate tangent, because you're not saving the princess. Mm-hmm. In fact, the only time you even hear about her is in the beginning, and then it's done. So sequel, kinda, and it's also like it's own.
It's a standalone sequel.
Yeah, it's a standalone thing. So you don't need to play Ocarina of Time to be able to play that one. So that's why I meant to get into it. But
you're right. I just wanted to make sure we clarified that in case anybody was confused by that.
Right.
But so anyways, the interesting part of it is that this game takes place in the child timeline, as it is referred to in the Zelda community, which basically is what happens after Link beats Ganondorf. Spoiler alert, by the way, but the game's been out for over 20 years, so if you haven't played it yet, that's your fault.
If you don't know that Link defeats Ganon, then you've never heard of Zelda, and this
does not apply to you. Go away. Anyways.
Right.
So
Ganon is the big bad guy in most of the games.
Giant pig dude. Anyways.
That's racist.
we can get into that in a different
We'll discuss it later. Anyways. So, you after Link beats Ganondorf as an adult in Ocarina of Time, he gets sent back in time, and he warns Zelda, who then warns the king, and that's how Ganondorf is defeated.
Yep.
And then immediately after that, Link goes on this new adventure to a land called Termina, which is seen almost like a parallel universe type idea to Hyrule. But what's interesting is that there's a common fan theory that has more or less been confirmed, quote unquote. Like the developers didn't come out and say it was confirmed,
right?
But they haven't denied it either. That in this game, Link is dead.
Yes, I heard that one.
At the beginning of the game, there's a big fall that Link falls off a cliff, and then that's when Skull Kid shows up.
Yep. And
the whole premise of this is that the game takes place while Link is dead, in purgatory, more or less.
Yep. And with the great puppet, with the great mask salesman as the one articulating the world. Yeah,
he's basically death.
Yeah.
Which so with that in mind, everything makes more sense, sort of, in that sense.
Right.
And it's even said too that each of the areas of the game represent a different stage of grief. With the big one, the big obvious one, is Clocktown, referred to as the denial stage of grief. Right. Because everybody's just going about their business.
Which is very evident. They know that, the doom is imminent and stuff, and a lot of them just, kind of accept it or just straight up deny that it's even going to happen.
So they have this giant-ass moon with a creepy-ass face. Fuzzy, if you would, put a picture on the screen for the people so they know what we're talking about.
Nightmare fuel when I was a kid. Seriously, yeah.
Definitely. Anyway, so they see this big, huge moon looming above them, and they never seem to even notice. And then obviously the other areas represent different forms of grief, which I'm not going to get into now, mostly because it's been so long since I played the game, I don't remember where all of them are. But, the aspect of Link being dead kind of turns the story on its head, and you're like, oh, this takes on a whole new meaning than just a new game. And I want to that kind of reminds me of what you were saying that past morning about how everything seems for nothing, and it's kind of focused on in the death aspect of it.
Yeah, that's
the more and more you accomplish, the less you feel you've actually accomplished. Because just like how you would in Purgatory or whatever, you never really make any progress.
And no matter what you do, you can't do everything.
Right. So that's kind of what that's definitely what they're getting at here.
Yeah.
Is the whole idea of death being something that you can't escape from, and you can't do anything to actually progress any further. Now, technically, there is a way that you can save everybody in the game, but it requires a lot of intricate things to do, and in the long run is not really worth it sometimes.
Right, and but then that also brings it too, is that, you can do all that stuff, but there's huge time constraints that even if you do or can save everyone and make everything right, you have very little time to enjoy that. Because, the world's going to blow up anyway, and you got to, redo it.
It's definitely a very stressful game. That's for sure. Because not only do you have the giant-ass moon above you, to lingering over everything, just the idea that you've only got 3 days, or from the beginning, I remember, when I first saw the game, it was when my sister was playing it on N64, and as soon as I saw the whole 3 days thing, and I'm like, I've only got 3 days to play it? What happens if you shut it off and don't come back till tomorrow? And then I didn't realize it was an internal clock thing. I thought it was actually 3 literal days.
Interesting thing about it is that the game was actually supposed to take a span of a week, which I'm sure you probably, it was supposed to be 7 days, but there were time constraints and essentially, there's only so much that they could do with the amount of time that they had, and also the mechanics that they could work with in the game. But I do think that they pulled it out quite well.
Yeah. And I mean, one thing that I think the game does extraordinarily well is that you want to save everybody. Like, it's not just like some games where there's side quests, you're like, oh, I don't really care about that, whatever. Right. You actually feel invested in all these characters being saved. So even though you might not save every character on a particular playthrough of this game, you regret that, because you immediately think, oh, I didn't get the chance to fix Anju and Kafei's relationship, or I didn't get a chance to... That was a
big one for me. That has so many different parts to it that it can go on to like the third day, or you can just like straight up finish it in a day. Like you get the letter from Anju, and you can either go through all that complicated... That was a fun mission, honestly, and it was bittersweet at the end. And you can go through all the complicated things to get it done, or you can go to the bathroom and give that letter to the creepy hand coming out of the crapper and get a heart piece out of it.
That's all you need to know about Majora's Mask. Creepy hand in the crapper, 10 out of 10, best game ever.
Right. So that gives you a decision, on what to do too, because like you can do the like in that moment. There's like 3 options. You can just not do it, or go out of your way to not even be able to do it, like giving it the letter to the hand, or actually push through and try to finish it off. Yeah. So there's multiple decisions that you can make, but none of them ever seem right, because in a perfect world, you'd have it done, it would be taken care of, and you wouldn't have to do it again.
And there wouldn't be a hand in the toilet to begin with.
Right.
So anyways,
so the hand pops out of many toilets in the Zelda series. I just wanted to point that out.
I will say, when I first saw the Princess Fairy thingy in the bomb...
Princess Fairy? What
fairy? The naked princess.
Oh, the Great Fairy?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, the Great Fairy.
That was really uncomfortable.
Yeah, they're really weird. Especially in Ocarina of Time, too.
She was hot back in the day.
In the day, that was like every boy's dream.
No, when you're 7 years old, that was hot.
That's about as close as you got to porn in the day.
Right.
So
ugly.
Needless to say, as evidenced by, the hat that I'm wearing a hat with Skull Kid on it, just to clarify for those watching.
I like that hat.
I had to make sure I was wearing the right hat. So,
do you have a hat for every video game?
Not every video game, only the ones that matter.
Oh.
So, anyways, I could go on talking about this game forever, but obviously everybody else out here in the real world has better things to do with their day. So let's move on with what we're going to talk about, guys. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and score this game on a scale of 1 to 10 for each of these categories, with a final score coming up later. You'll see them tallied at the end of the discussion.
If I'm intelligent to remember to do it.
He won't be. So just keep track, take notes, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, don't sell yourself out. You're the professional out of it.
Yeah, you're the perfectionist over here. Anyways, so with that being said, first thing we're going to score is plot. I guess we'll start with Fuzzy, his whole 2 hours of plot stuff. How do you recommend the plot?
You didn't get very far, but both of us have told you a fair bit.
I'm going to give it a 5.
Out of 100.
5 out of 10.
No, 5 out of 5. There you go.
I mean, considering you don't know much about the plot, that's fair.
That's not bad.
That's fair.
That definitely sounds like you might be willing to get into it.
Yeah. What about you, PasMorning? What do you rate the plot?
I would say about an 8. I would say an 8. I mean, there's always room for improvement, and there's also other Zelda games that I enjoyed too. Mm-hmm. But I personally haven't played it in a while, so. I mean, I don't know, but I would definitely go an 8 on the plot.
Yeah. As far as me, I'd say a solid 9 out of 10. Just in regards to the fact that it's arguably the most unique Zelda story.
It very much is. It very much is.
I mean, there are other Zelda stories that I like better, and this Majora's Mask isn't my favorite Zelda game by any means.
Right.
Mostly because I feel like I need a guide to complete it half the damn time because it's so freaking complicated, which is a big thing with the plot.
Right.
It's so complicated.
You can only get so far, then you have to restart.
Right, and then you have to know specifically what you're doing.
Yep.
But with all that said and done, the fact that it's such a unique story really just drives that point home. And honestly, if I can say, Skull Kid, probably the best Zelda villain, in my humble opinion.
Oh, yeah.
And by that I mean I'm right. Don't argue with me. Leave me alone.
Whatever. I ain't arguing. Well, Majora, everyone has been wanting Majora to be in, and I think I speak for any Zelda fan, Majora for Smash Bros.
Dude, I was all up there for that.
Oh yeah.
Hashtag Majora for Smash Bros.
Well, isn't Skull Kid? Wasn't he just a lone kid who wanted some friends and all?
Yeah, that? and that's the point though. So the mask of Majora corrupts that mindset of him to want a friend that he is corrupted by that because he's so lonely. And so that's all the stuff we're talking about is exactly why I gave this game a 9 out of 10. Yep. It's got the most unique Zelda story there is.
It very much does.
And I mean, and that's saying something because every Zelda story is unique. But this one's arguably the one that really stands aside.
Yeah, for sure.
So what about sound design? PasMorning, we'll start with you.
10 out of 10. I have always enjoyed Zelda music, period. I hum them constantly. I enjoy any Zelda song. One of my favorite things to do is, I used to enjoy just playing around on the ocarina and just, mess with the music that you can get out of that. But yeah, no, very memorable music in it. So I would, 10 out of 10.
Honestly, I agree. 10 out of 10. Even more so than just the music, which the music is phenomenal. I'm not going to deny that. Yep. I love Zelda music. But also, the sound clips they put in the game. Like the Happy Mask Salesman's little humming thing that he does whenever he sees you. And then the Skull Kid's laugh. Arguably the creepiest thing from a child. Yep. Just his crazy laugh. Play a sound clip of that if you can in editing later.
I'll help you find it.
But again, we want to see that. But so that alone is that's a 10 out of 10. Like just the music, atmosphere, and I said this last week too, I think, or whatever week we did the soundtracks, I forget. About how the Zelda soundtrack is one of the best soundtracks there is because of the fact that since there's no dialogue in the game, the sound has to drive the story.
It imparts the kind of feeling and the mood, and it always felt like to me that the right music was played in the right moment.
Yeah.
If you were supposed to feel despair, you would have something like that. If you're supposed to, if you're in the town, you get this happy, good chill out music, and then if you're in a disparative moment or something, you get something a little more deep and dark. And so, you can honestly say that the sound is definitely one of the biggest parts in Zelda games. games. Yeah, because it helps.
It's the driving force. In
right.
A lot of ways.
It helps push the mood of the situation because no one really talks.
So that's a 10 out of 10 on sound design from us. What about you, Fuzzy?
I'm going to give it a 9 because the thing is, I found it really weird that the villagers would moan whenever you talk to them.
That was usually just to impart some kind of humanism from them. Like, just the same as you would see in, like, Animal Crossing, where they don't actually talk, they just say some weird gibberish.
And not only that, the only reason I am not giving it a 10 is because I'm going to fucking have do stuck in my head every single day. So fuck you, Nintendo.
You've met with a terrible fate, haven't you?
I have. Yeah. I'm going to be singing that nonstop.
Let me tell you about the first time I ever played Ocarina of Time. That tune, it doesn't go away. It will not.
I mean, sometimes when I'm at work, I like to sing songs in my head, help pass the time. And the Zelda theme appears in my head all the time.
Yeah, no, that's right up there with the Mario soundtrack and like the Star Wars stuff, because I do that a lot too.
Yep.
So it's very memorable. So
all in all, I think sound design, we fared that pretty well. How about replayability? How often are you guys replaying this game?
Well, I'm going to be going over to PasMorning's house, maybe on Tuesday or whenever, to load up my profile and play more of it. So I think there's some good replayability there, despite it being a bit dated by 20-some years. But
30 years, actually. I think it came out in 1998.
Came out in 2000.
Did it?
Yeah.
Oh, his Ocarina of Time was 1999. That's right.
Yeah.
So, anyways, yeah. So, okay. So, what score do you give that?
I'm going to give it a 7.
7? All right. Personally, as far as replayability goes, I always think Zelda games are replayable all the time. I think I mentioned earlier with something how I played Ocarina of Time like 12 times over the years, stuff. I replay Zelda games all the time. Majora's Mask is a little different in the regards that it has more replayability built into it because of all the different story elements that you can't necessarily do everything all this at the same time.
Right.
But it's also got a little bit less replayability in my mind because it's so complicated that I play it once and I'm not necessarily as enthused to get back into it.
Because, just to get through the main storyline, you have to essentially redo several different parts in order to get through it.
And this is definitely a game, like, if you leave it sitting for 2-3 days at a time, you're going to come back to it and forget where you were. Mm-hmm. So, in that regard, I wouldn't rate it as high as, like, I did with like sound design and plot. I'd say probably a 7 out of 10 because as much as this game has going for it replayability wise, it's not one that I'm always enthused to get back into just because of how complicated and how much effort I know I'm going to have to put in.
Right, it's something that you know that you're going to have to sit down and continue.
Yeah. So what about you, PasMorning? What about replayability?
Well, see, I have a personal problem. As soon as I beat a game and did everything in it, I always have a hard time getting back into it because all the surprise is gone. Mm-hmm. So it's more about the journey than the destination for me. And once you reach the destination, I don't necessarily usually feel like replaying it. So as much as I love the game, I would give it a 5 as replayability because, like you said, Ambrose, there was replayability is pretty much built into this game, having to redo whole sections of the game just to get to the next spot. Mm-hmm. And you might end up finding yourself redoing the same spot several different times, almost to the point where some parts can get kind of old. Yeah. So I would say optimistically 5. The day I finally beat the game, right. I probably wouldn't play it again for a while, but I love Zelda games, so I'll definitely be playing it again.
All right, and the last thing we're going to score this game on today is recommendation. Fuzzy, you've only played the game for a couple hours, but I think this will probably give a good reason for us to see how much you'd recommend the game.
What would a novice think?
I'm not going to rate this. I'm going to let you guys people rate it down in the comments below.
That's a cop-out. You're cheating.
That is such a cop-out.
You're cheating!
Kiss ass.
All right,
well, fine, I can't really recommend a game that I haven't completed.
I mean, you can recommend games on first impressions.
You can.
You literally said that a game that hasn't come out yet is going to be the game you play for the rest of your life.
This is true.
That counts right there.
Yeah.
I'm going to give it a 7.5.
All right, that's pretty good for not playing more than a couple hours of it. What about you, PasMorning? What do you recommend?
Well, this score kind of, if you don't play Zelda games, then you would never listen to the recommendation anyway. But mine would be 10 out of 10. Huge Nintendo 64 fan, a huge Ocarina of Time fan, Majora's Mask, like any of the Zeldas, honestly. But yeah, I would say 10 out of 10. Like, at least play it and test it out, because there's a great and wonderful, albeit fucked up story behind it in it, but it's definitely something I would consider playing if, this is your kind of game.
As far as that goes, I kind of have 2 ratings on this one, depending on how you view it. 9 out of 10 if Zelda is your thing. If you've played Zelda games and you were weary about this one, 9 out of 10. Give it a try. Right. But if you were to play this and this is your first Zelda game, I wouldn't play it as your first one. So no. I'd put more of like a 5 out of 10 on that one in that regard.
Yeah,
because
that might not be the game to get into Zelda.
Yeah, if you're trying to like get into Zelda at this point, then it's not the first game you should play, because the story is hard enough, story's hard enough to understand that it might turn you off from the rest of the series. It might also get you involved in the other story if you beat it,
because of how versatile.
Right, just because of how versatile it is. But again, it's such a different game. It doesn't really capture what Zelda itself as a whole necessarily is.
True.
So in that regard, kind of 9 out of 10 if you're into Zelda, 5 out of 10 if you haven't quite played Zelda yet.
I would almost say the same thing on that one. I would say a recommendation. I know, like, we could put this in a different video, but now that we're on that topic, I would recommend, if like the first Zelda game you ever play is, and I might just be a hypocrite or whatever, but I would say Ocarina of Time. That might be the one to get into. It was so far to this date the most memorable one I've personally played. But then again, it's the first one I've ever played. And so I would recommend, if you're a first-time Zelda player, definitely go for Ocarina of Time.
And I feel like, in that regard, Zelda, in a lot of ways, like with other series, like Final Fantasy, whatever, typically the one you play first is your favorite.
Usually.
That's what I've heard from a lot of people.
Right. So, same thing with, like, Mario games. First one I personally remember playing was Super Mario 64. Mm-hmm. And to this day is one of my favorite ones.
Yep.
But that one did kind of get tricky. Nobody likes it, but Super Mario Sunshine.
I love Super Mario Sunshine.
And nobody likes it, but that's like my favorite one.
All right, tangents aside, that's our scores. You're gonna see our final scores of the game on the screen. Go easy on Fuzzy. He doesn't play these games that much, so don't hate him too much. But
I'm sorry.
Hey, games are all about the enjoyment that you have from them, and and that's the fun thing about games, is that not everyone needs to play the same game.
Yeah,
it's what you get out of it. Being different is perfectly fine when it comes to games.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I like that. Anyways, we're gonna transition at this point. So, all right, now we're gonna watch some game trailers. What game trailers do we got today, Fuzzy?
Well, you're first.
Oh, yes, I am first. Therefore, I should know what the first one is. What did I pick again? Oh, yes! Doom Eternal. I knew this.
At least you get to ask that question. I don't even have one right now.
Anyways, Doom Eternal. This is interesting because this isn't even necessarily a trailer. This is just a teaser. But all other trailers I could find of it were like 6 minutes, 20 minutes, all that kind of stuff. And I was like, we ain't gonna spend that much time on a trailer.
Yeah.
So this is like the first reveal of the game back at E3. And I think it does a well enough job to explain what the game is. So let's watch it. All right. So first impressions of this trailer. I'm gonna start off by saying I'm not a huge fan of Doom necessarily. I've always enjoyed the games, but they're never really on my list. But I did enjoy the Doom game that came out in 2016 for the PS4. And this is a sequel to that, obviously. And I'm hyped for this. The music alone It's got me.
The music is pretty badass.
Yeah, they did pick a good opening.
Yeah, the heavy metal music that this and the last game did it very well too. It does a really good job of capturing what you're about, because you're literally, and for those of you guys who haven't played Doom, it's about going to Mars because there's demons on Mars. Because there's a portal that the game doesn't have much of a plot. We'll say that much right about it. I don't know what the hell is going on with the story after that.
I think the newer Dooms kind of play off of, like, you already know essentially the plot. It's essentially demons or whatever coming from a different spot and ripping their way into your world.
Its basic premise is you don't need a plot. Go kill demons.
Right, and sometimes that's all you need in a game is like, here's just enough of what you need to know that these guys are bad. Now go kill them. Have fun.
And so I'm hyped up for this. Like I said, this isn't really a trailer necessarily. This isn't any gameplay or anything. It's just a teaser of it. But I think it does a good enough job of teasing the game. I think it's going to be do a really good job. You got an idea of what the demons you're going to be fighting are, all that kind of stuff. The brain spiders going on there. Right. It's freaking sweet.
Just watching the teaser, it kind of imparts that, the takeover of wherever it is that they are is imminent or already in action.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, it looks fun.
I played Doom a long time ago. I don't remember much about it.
It's been a while for me, too.
But I definitely will be checking this game out when it is released later.
Yeah, and for those of you who are interested in this, it is releasing PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and, like the first one, it's going to be coming to Nintendo Switch, even though I don't think that was officially announced at first. But it is coming to Nintendo Switch on day one, just like the rest of them.
That's impressive.
Yeah. It's impressive that the Switch is getting games like that, which is really cool.
I think they're trying to push that a little bit more, that they can keep up with the other ones and not just do the cutesy Nintendo games.
Mario and Zelda.
Yeah, which I'm not dissing them, because they've been doing it great for years, but yeah, it is good to see others.
This game does not have an official release date yet, only 2019 tentative, but it looks good. Any other thoughts on this trailer?
Well, let's see what you guys have to see about it.
Yeah, let's check out some of these comments.
One comment that I really love says that Doom is the most Christian game out there. So if you're a hardcore Christian, I highly recommend that you go out and buy it.
I mean, it's
Give
a game.
Give it to your 2-year-old.
It's a game where you're murdering demons.
Right. They don't get much more Christian than that.
I know.
That kind of makes sense.
I like this one. It says, may contain content inappropriate for children. And then it just says, May? Like, clearly it's not going to be appropriate for children.
Nah, there's nothing inappropriate about it.
One of the best things about the Doom series is that even way back in the day, like with the first Doom, all pixelated and kind of clunky, there was blood. And not a lot of games really, put the blood and the fear aspect.
So, another comment I love here. When Satan goes to sleep every night, he checks his closet for Doom Guy.
Yeah. Which, for anyone who doesn't know, Doom Guy is actually the name of the character you play as. He was never officially given a name other than Doom Guy in the original game.
He goes by Doom Guy, Doom Slayer, Doom Marine, kind of all that stuff. But he's Doom Guy.
So they go further into it, but yeah.
It's still Doom Guy.
Right.
I think I'm going to do what this guy's doing. Because every second of this trailer is a badass wallpaper that you can use.
Sure.
I think after this podcast, I'm going to go ahead and search for Doom.
You could seriously pause this at any point and have every second is a new wallpaper, for sure.
Now, this is interesting because a lot of people want Doom Guy for Super Smash Bros.
I'm not surprised.
I'm not surprised by that. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about that. I don't think a game about killing demons necessarily is going to get a character, especially because literally, if you think about it, what his final Smash would be the BFG, which is literally the big fucking gun.
Yeah. But that also brings a question too, is like just what is too much for Smash Bros. Because you have Snake.
And they have Bayonetta.
Snake, a licensed murderer. And
Bayonetta, who's a witch who literally is wearing her hair as clothing.
Right. and she kills angels.
Yeah.
She kills everything.
I mean, hey, we got an Angel Killer. We can kill demons too. We're all right.
Right.
Which case, but if honestly, if we're gonna have any Demon Slayer in Smash Bros., I want Dante. We'll just put that out there.
Right. Which it's possible. Yeah, isn't Dante through Capcom?
Capcom.
Yeah, and they've already got a few Capcom characters in there.
So let us know in the comments below on which character you prefer in Smash Bros. Doom Guy or Dante. # Dante. Anyways, next trailer. That was weird. I don't do that very often. The next trailer, Fuzzy. What trailer are we going to be watching today?
Well, there was this one trailer that I really wanted to talk about, but I found something on Steam that I know that Ambrose and you would definitely love. The game is called...
We're probably going to hate it.
The game is called My Senpai, and...
No,
I'm joking. Nah, it's not that. My game trailer for this week is Lost Region, which is currently an early access game by Farm Studio and coming to Steam somewhere in Q2 of this year. Now, if this game looks enticing to Ambrose and PasMorning, maybe we will even have to stream the game to our Twitch and YouTube channel, or I might do so on my own.
You ever notice how he volunteers just for stuff we don't agree to?
I know, right? You're selling us out here.
Right, come on now.
Of course, you guys are welcome to come play with me too when it's released. If you want, because I need more friends. All by myself. Anyways, this game kind of feels a little bit like State of Decay 2, but it contains that element that I adore in games. The ability to team up with people, build bases, make allies with fractions, and overall survive together in this massive online player mode. Now, I am curious if this will feature player versus player mode, because right now it's player versus element. Which is something I'm not a fan of, player versus player. But it could be fun. Anyways, I plan to spend a lot of time playing this game as well. Not only does it look stunning, but it looks really fun. I really have high hopes for this game. But this is Lost Region, and it looks really, really fun, and I'm really hyped for it when it does come out in Q2 of 2019.
Which starts next month, so I mean it's coming out soon.
Mm-hmm. And this game is in early access as well, so if you want to go to their website and buy a key to play it.
Now, my thought in this game is, first things, it reminds me of Far Cry and Fallout. Very, very Fallout aesthetic to it. And I think that's kind of the point in a way. Like a lot of this, is there any way we know where this game takes place?
No.
Because a lot of this stuff, a lot of the
I think
buildings in this game remind me straight out of Fallout 76, which is just giving me like PTSD over here.
Apparently, this map is going to be about 40 miles in size, so it's quite impressive in size.
That's pretty big. It's pretty good size.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty large. It definitely looks something like not post-apocalyptic necessarily, like Fallout, where everything looks like you scraped it out of the sewer. Like everything.
Pretty much.
Yeah, everything's just covered in shit. But no, this definitely looks like something recent happened that caused enough of a cataclysm to cause a survival-esque manner. So, yeah, it doesn't look like people have been doing this for years, but it looks more like a recent, whatever, shit happened and now they're in it.
So, it's kind of clear to see that this game is early access because it doesn't really show a whole lot other than dude walking around and kind of pictures of different scenery and stuff.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So
it looks like it's showing you the bones, but you don't get to see the meat.
Yeah.
You get to see the foundation of what you get to do, but it doesn't really show too much on what you actually can do.
Honestly, if I had to say something about this, I'm going to need to see more of it to get to be inclined with it. Because to me, it just seems very Fallout-y, which isn't bad. I love Fallout, but if it comes down to it, if there's a game that just reminds me so much of another game, I need to see something that sets it apart to make it worthwhile for me.
Yeah, to me, it looks like a survival game, and I didn't necessarily see enough for me to be extra excited about it. It could be, but then again, it could just be any other survival game.
Yeah. So who knows? It could be good. Like I said, if I see something more about it, maybe I'd be willing to give it a try. But right now, it just seems too much of the same old thing. Which, I mean, most games can appear that way at first, and then you have to actually play it to get the feel of it. But yeah, I think I'd have to wait for it, see what's going on with that.
And because we were looking at this on Steam, there's really no comments below. But
yeah,
let us know what you think below.
Yeah, so we'll read your comments later. Maybe. But we can't heart them, apparently. Well, I mean, we can, but you can't.
I can. So, PasMorning, what are we watching?
Little Devil Inside.
Inside of what?
There's a little devil inside of me.
You're right. Not too much is said necessarily about the game. It has been announced that it's supposed to have like 20 hours of cutscenes and just as much, if not more, time into being able to play it. It is a survival kind of game where your character can die, and when he does, he's gone. But you can use another character and collect items from that character who died.
So it's a roguelike game,
right? And there's a game, whatever, a zombie game that I can't necessarily remember right now that would have been a good reference if I could remember it. But yeah, it's a survival game where the character can essentially die, and then you can use a different character. You got to take care of your needs like food and water, and what exactly the story is, not much is said. And as of now, there is no release date, and not necessarily even a close hint as to when it's actually going to be released.
All right, well, let's watch this trailer.
Yep.
All right, so
apparently the guy in this trailer is a vegan because he's saving the pig and not killing it.
So speaking of killing the pig, the end of that part where he puts the pig down and the pig's just standing, I don't know why, but I expected somebody to like come over and run over the pig or something. I don't know why.
That's too much Borderlands for you. That's probably what you're thinking.
Right.
All right, so first impressions. PasMorning already did a pretty good job of explaining the game, so we'll probably start off with Fuzzy. What's your impression of this game?
The game looks interesting. I mean, the thing is,
mild way of putting it.
The thing is, the game looks really interesting. It kind of looks like a basic survival game where you have to go out and do this and that. It does kind of almost feel a little bit like Minecraft with the character models as well.
I kind of have the same idea.
Because it's very cartoony-ish, whatever.
I do love the freaking face the guy makes when he's holding the pig and running away.
That's the best face ever.
You're right.
What even is that face?
Holy shit,
please don't kill me!
Right, it's the holy shit I'm getting shot at face.
It's like, I must protect my bacon.
Yes. He's a big pig. You me a big pig too.
Alright, so, any more impressions on that, Fuzzy, or is it?
That's it.
I mean, there's really not much to go on.
Not a whole lot to go on. I've personally done research on it, and it's just not a whole lot to go on from that either. There's very little trailers put on this, and it's a couple years old. So,
I mean, it seems like it was on. I think it was on Kickstarter first, wasn't it?
I believe it was.
I mean, the game looks pretty, if anything. Like,
right. I've always been a fan of the colorful, almost cartoony-esque kind of thing. You know, like one of my favorite games was Zelda Wind Waker. Yeah. It just because of the art style, which a lot of people didn't like that.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. For a long time, I actually didn't like the cartoony aspect of it. I preferred more realistic styles to it. But this definitely looks good, despite the cartooniness. And I'm not really opposed to cartoony stuff anymore. But I agree with you, Fuzzy. I do get a serious Minecraft vibe out of it. And I don't know why, but it kind of has that feel to it. And of course, this trailer, I guess, is in Spanish or something, because we can't read any of the comments. They're all in a different language. But this one right here, Gioco Molto Bello. What does that mean?
I don't know. You might have just said something really bad.
Oh. I'm not even sorry.
Macalics man per Galaka as a forest and Singalo
All right, hey, we don't want to get demonetized now.
Plus.
Yeah, you shouldn't read off things if you don't know what they mean. You could have just said like some really bad stuff.
Right, we could have just insulted everybody's mother for all you know.
Right. The fur is not the full Yoshiogi.
Well, how about you scroll down a little bit and maybe try.
That's all the comments.
That's all the comments. All right,
I could have found a better one, but my bad.
No, you're good. You're good. So yeah, this game looks appealing. I'm not entirely sure if I'm sold on it. I'm not huge into survival necessarily.
Right. Survival is definitely, it's hard to get into, and then it's also hard to sustain that level.
Yeah. I have a issue a little bit with maintaining sort of survival elements. Mm-hmm. Like games that make you actually have to eat all the time is something that I'm not really good with.
Right.
Like Red Dead Redemption 2 came out last year, and they had an aspect of it where if you don't eat enough, you become underweight, but if you eat too much, you become overweight. And if you're underweight or overweight, it does affect how you perform in the game.
Like your stamina and stuff. Something like that is a little more, I would say like a little more acceptable. Yeah. But like in this regard, if you don't eat or drink, you probably die.
Yeah. But anyway, in the first hour of Red Dead Redemption 2, I focused so hard on trying to eat enough. And then after that, I kind of quit. So it's not worth it to try to eat anymore.
Right.
But no, so again, in this sort of aspect where it's like if you don't eat enough, you die. As much as that's real, it's not something I'm good at maintaining some of that. Like even when I play Minecraft, I always struggle to remember to bring food with me when I go places because you're gonna run out of food.
Right. Well, but what I was able to find is that yes, your character can die, but that doesn't mean that the game is over.
Right.
You get to essentially start over with a different character, and they have different stats and different skills and stuff.
And that's actually sort of a new style that's becoming more and more popular these days too, is that roguelike aspect of it, which is what it's called, where like one character dies, you get to have another character go out and get stuff.
Right. Wasn't it like State of Decay or something that did something like that?
Yes.
I never personally played it, but I heard it was a lot like that.
And I mean, if anything, they got really fitting music for this trailer. Like right off the beginning, I got a desert vibe like immediately.
Yeah, and it was very soothing and almost kind of relaxing. It was definitely good mood music.
Yeah, there's a couple parts in the trailer where it seemed like the music didn't quite match what was happening on screen, but
right. I think that was just supposed to be overtone music.
Right. Beggars can't be choosers, though. So
this is true.
Anyways,
and I am begging for this game to come out. So looks
and I'm
fun.
Choosing to believe you. There we go.
It works.
Anyways, that was our last trailer for the day. That being said, do we have any other side notes that we want to talk about, or are we pretty much out of here?
You know, this would definitely fit more within the movie element, but it definitely ties in with the video game element as well. But if you guys haven't seen, they released the new Sonic trailer for the movie that's coming out. And I'm just going to say right now, before you make a movie of Sonic, you should probably make a good Sonic game.
Ooh, shots fired.
What a slam.
I mean, you're right, though. There hasn't really been a good Sonic game in like 20 years.
Yeah, not since the Genesis.
Yeah. I mean, there's been some that aren't terrible, but they're definitely not good.
I personally like Sonic Heroes, but no one liked that game.
I like Sonic Heroes. Right. It wasn't great, but
I think if I went back to it, I'd probably see more of the issues that my young mind didn't comprehend back then.
You know, as long as they don't get into it where they have bestiality like they did in Sonic 06, in which case it's already better than the game.
What?
Yeah,
you don't remember that? The part where Sonic was making out with
he never played those
the human princess at the end of the game?
Yeah. They kiss.
It was a big thing back then. Everyone was backlash over that. Like, there's bestiality in this. Even though it's kind of established that Sonic is more or less a human, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Like, kind of, but.
Not only that, Sonic just looks absolutely disgusting.
That's the movie.
I feel like, they almost should have went with more of the classic design.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, we're digressing, so I think we should probably just wrap it up.
Yeah. Sonic, the movie.
With that being said, that was our show for you guys. We hope you enjoyed it. Leave a like down below if you did. Comment, let us know what kind of trailers you want us to do next time. And tune in next week as we are going to do a top 10 list for you guys. We haven't quite figured out the topic yet, but we'll let you guys know.
The first top 10 list is going to be our top 10 favorite animated movies. Let us know down in
the movie one. This is the video game.
This is the video game. We're in the video game.
We haven't decided
stuff.
the video game one.
Yeah. Stop being a sellout for like 5 seconds. And
we'll talk about that next. We haven't decided what the top 10 video is going to be, but tune in and let us know what you want. Maybe even leave us some suggestions down below what kind of things you want to hear us talk about. With that being said, I'm Ambrose.
I'm your host, Fuzzy.
You got to be the host. Anyways, we'll see you next time.